Let's go to Littlefoot in Silver City, New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live, Littlefoot.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, I'd like to talk about the agent provocateur subject. I worked for years. I'm 59 years old. I'm what they call a baby boomer. Well, all human beings on this planet are veterans of the atomic war because it was global and it's still hanging in there, fallout and all that stuff. I mean, that's like a whole nother subject, a can of worms. And then I'm a veteran of the drug war, the Cold War. I'm a Vietnam-era veteran. I'm a veteran. Now they're saying the Cold War, which I was in also, a veteran of that.
Okay.
I was on a nuclear submarine in the Navy, and some of the new historians are calling it World War III. And then there's people talking about kindling the Cold War.
That's what we need.
And then they're saying, oh, that's going to be World War III. And then some of them are saying, no, that's going to be World War IV. Well, anyway, after work after getting out of the Navy and working in 5 nuclear power plants, I went to work with Greenpeace people, Earth First people, Eat First people, the atomic veterans, that whole bunch. There's a bunch of them, but I'm not a joiner. I didn't join. I don't belong to any groups. And
I know Derek used to work for Greenpeace. Didn't you used to do?
Yeah, I did fundraising.
Outreach.
Yeah, I did outreach and fundraising for Greenpeace International.
Okay, so you were you worked in the military with nuclear stuff. Then you went and you joined some groups to oppose nuclear weapons after you had done military work.
The testing in Nevada at the test site. It's actually they have exploded nearly 700 nuclear bombs there. They had some treaty years back. I think it was around 1969, and they stopped doing them atmospherically and doing them, subterranean explosions.
Okay, so we're kind of all over the map here. Maybe I'm missing out what you're getting at. Now you're talking about nuclear explosion, nuclear testing.
Well, that's what we went. You asked me, and I'm telling you, that's what we went to try to stop.
You brought up agent provocateurs at first.
As a volunteer, because of the sensitivity, the government sent agent provocateurs and undercover people. I've worked side by side for them.
How did you know?
With them. But,
you mean like into the Greenpeace group, for instance? You're saying they sent agents?
Yeah, Greenpeace and Earth First and all of them.
Okay, so what clued you into who the agents were?
Well, it was pretty obvious to most of us because they had a different vibe. Mm-hmm. They weren't really as tuned into the whole scene, and we would watch them. And we had a guy that went with us to Yucca Mountain. That's where they were doing a pilot test program kind of thing, or not a pilot program, but a test program, drilling gigantic tunnels in Yucca Mountain, which is right next to the test site. See, Area 51 is in that same test site, but it's miles.
So would the agents provocateur attempt to provoke? I mean, would they suggest violence?
Yeah, well, they were successful one time, and half the group during the walk across America. See, we joined up with a bunch of people at the DOE office in Las Vegas, Nevada, in 1992. The 500-year anniversary of Christopher Columbus discovering.
I think you're going off on way too many tangents, but thank you, Littlefoot, for the call tonight. You do have to look out for the agents provocateur. It doesn't sound like they were trying to provoke too much there. Otherwise, of course, it might have taken another half an hour to actually get to that story. But whether somebody's showing up and they've got a bad vibe or a strange vibe, that's not always an indicator that they may be an agent. It may be an indicator that they just might be someone who's socially inept, somebody who isn't really good at getting along with people or not experienced at in groups, that kind of thing.
I can tell you the guess, the who's the Fed game that goes on sometimes.
It's a dangerous game.
Yeah, sometimes at some of these liberty-oriented events. I find it to be, really a nasty game. It's not. It's just nerds saying, "Hey, he's a nerd," in many cases, and really just not a game to be played. The fact is, the best way to operate is as though you would in front of a Fed all the time. You should be able to do what do what you do, say what you say, in a way that isn't going to get you arrested, even if your wife's a Fed.
Yeah, that's why I say that, when it comes to having these agents provocateur around, it doesn't matter whether they're an agent or whether they're just somebody with an awkward, inability to relate to other people, or just, an angry person who feels like they need to get some sort of revenge. Whatever the reason is that they're around, if they're advocating for violence, it needs to be opposed. It needs to be opposed verbally. If people are around advocating for violence and you don't speak out against it, it can be seen. Now, this isn't legal advice, but it can be seen as assent. Like if somebody's around plotting some sort of violent act and you don't speak out and say that you're not interested in that, then they could perhaps, take your silence as you agreeing to the plotting of the violent act.
Certainly could.
So if somebody starts coming around and talks like, "Hey, start killing cops, everybody," then speak out against it, number one, and try to hold that person with compassion and show that individual why it is that they're wrong. And I would say that if that person doesn't calm down and doesn't cease advocating that violence, like once you've explained to them, "Hey, this is a peaceful group of activists that you've encountered here, that you've come into, and we like to come at things from a peaceful perspective, and if you want to keep hanging around us, we'd love to have you keep being around us and helping out with activism, but not if you're going to be talking like that." Let them just lay it right out there. And if they continue to disrespect that request, I think at that point you're justified in cutting the person off. That's how I'd handle it.
Yeah, whether they're a Fed or not.
Exactly. Because either way, they are a huge liability, because somebody might take them seriously. They might tap into somebody's anger or their rage, and they may begin to actually plot to hurt somebody. And you want to talk about a bad thing for the movement, if you will. If if somebody starts a violent plot to actually harm, whether it's government officials or average people or whatever, these are going to be they're not going to be made. The liberty movement will not be made look good by somebody going around doing the things that caller was talking about, killing people earlier.
What about those
in the
people that out in Nevada that killed those cops? I mean, they're arguably liberty sorts.
Yeah, didn't they have an Adam Kokesh video on their YouTube preferences?
Yeah,
or
something like that. I think there were also perhaps snitches to the cops, but it's hard to say. There's all kinds of stuff out there, but people are going to believe what they want to believe, and if you give them just a little bit of evidence that those liberty sorts are dangerous, well, they're going to believe it.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.